All right. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the latest installment of Esri State and Local Connect. This is an Esri webinar series dedicated to state and local government GIS professionals who are aiming to increase use of GIS, especially around improving operational efficiencies, enabling smarter data-driven decisions, and enhancing citizen engagement. So I'm Mike Bialish, and I'm joined today by Sunny Fleming, and we are the State and Local Environment and Natural Resources team. I'm based here currently in my basement, just outside of Harrisburg, Pennsylvania, as I came to Esri about 4 years ago from Pennsylvania state government. Hey, Sunny, why don't you go ahead and say hello and tell where you're from?
Yeah, so I'm in my basement. I've been working from my basement before it was cool, and I am based in Nashville, Tennessee. And I spent a couple of my years with Tennessee State Parks, and prior to that, I was with their Division of Natural Heritage. So I'm actually a botanist by training and self-taught in all this GIS stuff, but that was good enough for Esri. So here we are as our team of two.
Awesome. So, well, we're really glad that all of you could join us today as we dive into the latest capabilities for environment and natural resources. This webinar is part of a series that initially focused on specific ArcGIS capabilities, while the ones lately have been more industry specific. So today we're focused on environment and natural resource organizations, everything from regulatory environmental protection agencies to fish and wildlife, to state parks and forestry, agriculture, natural heritage programs, as well as local governments that cover similar needs at that larger scale. So just a bit of ground that we're covering, but we do see some common needs and challenges, and we'll be looking at existing solution patterns, that can help ensure success as you continue to implement GIS technology to address them. I do want to mention that we are recording this session and that all of you will receive an email with a link to the recording, which you can share as well afterwards. We also invite your questions and should have some time at the end of the webinar to answer some of them. If you'd like to submit a question, you can at any time in the GoToWebinar questions pane. We'll try to follow up after too if we don't get to all the questions. So just wanted to mention that as well. All right, so I said we're going to dive in. So here we are, and here we go. We're going to get right into it. All right, so as I mentioned, there are a lot of common challenges for environment and natural resources organizations. First, it's those core responsibilities of natural and cultural resources protection and the need to convey and survey and collect key information about these resources, monitor their health and condition, establish protection measures, and so on. Many of our agencies are managing large land bases, which come with a host of challenges, whether it's how physical assets are managed or how the natural environment's managed for multiple uses, and measuring the impact of that management is really key. Of course, most agencies have some sort of regulatory component dealing with the permitting of various activities or facilities and related inspections and compliance and enforcement activities that also take place. It's become more and more critical to be transparent about agency programs, how capital funds or grant funds are invested, and what the related impacts of those investments are. That transparency is with the public as well, right? And being able to have effective outreach as well as providing mechanisms for the public to provide input, and that input truly being leveraged with the rest of the agency's operational content supporting decisions that are made. And of course, ensuring that environmental policies and impacts and conversely related interactions and things like recreational opportunities are taking into consideration communities of all kinds and not unfairly impacting one more than another through ensuring environmental justice factors are considered. All of this is challenging enough by itself, right? But we add to this that we commonly see these agencies dealing with aging infrastructures in that land base that I was just describing. There are also still a ton of paper-based or non-standardized workflows coupled with legacy systems, making it hard to aggregate and visualize content and complete needed reporting in a timely manner, which in turn leads to potential negative impacts on all those resources and land bases I was talking about. Whether internal or external, it's common to see collaboration challenges, whether simply sharing authoritative content or truly working together from authoritative resources in order to accomplish the many goals of our agencies, which require collaboration of programs and partners to begin with, right? And then I don't think I've heard one agency say, and I'm pretty sure Sunny would agree with me, that they have too many staff and they've got too much money. right? That's not the situation. And, adequate funds and resources to get all this work done can really be a huge limitation. So, wow, right? A lot to deal with and all that. But the good news is that GIS technology can and is helping with all these challenges, and in a way that's feasible and sustainable, and is often leveraging technology many of you already own. We saw this really come to fruition through the challenges brought by 2020, which only increased the importance of minimizing these limitations and being agile in our approaches. So where we're particularly seeing this technology innovation is in the areas of, for example, field operations. So using the out-of-the-box and configurable tools like field maps and Survey 123 to address not only critical data collection needs, but also to bring operational awareness to your field staff so that they have everything they need at their fingertips, whether online or offline, when making decisions around that asset maintenance, those species or habitat treatments, violations and compliance issues, or even things like emergency response, such as during wildfire-related events. In addition, the need for real-time situational awareness is driving the adoption of dashboards. So whether we're tracking those field data collection efforts I just mentioned, or the field workers themselves for safety reasons, to even things like assessing our customer bases and related trends for things like park visitation or the purchasing of hunting and fishing licenses. Very much related, looking at the impacts of capital investments and capital projects on visitation and related revenue. And of course, consuming real-time data feeds with all this. So things like stream gauge data, air quality, weather data, even radio collar and telemetry data, and so on, and visualizing it and leveraging it with your operational data, giving you that holistic picture, again, to help drive decisions. Continuing on, many of you are doing amazing work around spatial modeling and analytics. So things like predicting species and habitat probability, locating green infrastructure assets, assessing and communicating the economic impact of our work, and again, ensuring equity in all our activities and policies. I'm sure many of you are somewhat aware of the 30 by 30 initiatives that are underway in the United States and many countries abroad. And all these are the type of analytical capabilities and processes that will be brought to bear in order to meet the goal of conserving 30% of land and marine sources by the year 2030, which is what 3030 is all about. Lastly, we're just seeing an explosion of GIS technology to enable collaboration and two-way community engagement. So tools like Arcgis Hub and story maps infused with the same information products I was just talking about enable stakeholders and citizens to learn about various initiatives and truly participate in them for things like solar facility siting, forest management plans, even learning how agencies are monitoring for COVID in wastewater streams, or something a lot more fun like nominating and inspecting champion trees, which is one of my favorites. We're even seeing integrated trails initiatives like in Ohio, where GIS-based cross-platform mobile and web apps have been deployed, and Hub is used to engage citizens within them. So just some really awesome use cases, and really I'm just scratching the surface with these examples. But now speaking back to challenges, we often hear, this is all great, looks great, Mike and Sunny, but how do I get started, right? How do I know if I'm taking a best practice approach and so on? Well, we have many Esri resources to help with that, which we're going to focus on from now, through the end of the webinar. And really a great place to get started is with Arcgis Solutions. In addition to the core products and capabilities of the Arcgis platform, Esri's developed a large collection of configurable solutions that support many different operational areas of state and local government, including apps geared towards, of course, environment and natural resources. So Arcgis Solutions are an ecosystem of more than 400 applications that are easy to deploy and configure, whether for your public engagement needs, establishing program operational awareness with a dashboard like I was showing, field data collection applications, or apps to support even emergency response. So like our core software, these solutions are supported and sustained as the core technology advances. And we definitely encourage you to browse them all, but specific to environment, natural resources, there are solutions for invasive species monitoring easements, environmental impact assessment, citizen science initiatives, and a whole lot more. So definitely a great array of resources, which you can browse at solutions.arcgis.com or right from within your Arcgis Online organization. Okay, so for the remainder of our time, we're going to actually dive into three focus areas around permitting, outdoor recreation, and environmental justice. And while there are many trends and challenges, as I was just alluding to and showing, these three, especially over the last year plus during the pandemic and other events of 2020, have really risen up, and there's just a ton of focus on them. So with that, what I'm going to do is turn it over to Sunny now, who's going to start us off on permitting. So Sunny, if you want to take the screen sharing away, we can go from there.
All right. Thank you, Mike. I appreciate it. So I should have that same permitting slide up right now. And
Yep.
yeah, always getting used to everything. So as Mike mentioned, we're going to kind of cover three trends today, starting with permitting. And permitting workflows across our industry really include the following elements broadly. So there's this initial permit request that has to come in. Typically, there's some sort of mandated timeline to acknowledge and respond to this request. There's public comment or some type of public engagement. There's monitoring the progression of this workflow. And then, of course, there's this final determination that has to be made on the permit itself. Many agencies are facing record increases in permit requests, which, as Mike alluded to, this can be really challenging their existing infrastructure and standard operating procedures. We often see that these are tied to legacy applications or have barely survived via like spreadsheets and litany of emails, which then requires, of course, this painful manual aggregation of this data to attempt to answer outside questions or respond to data requests. So as agencies are working to modernize these workflows, Esri's geospatial infrastructure is going to support these needs by providing all the tools to facilitate this entire process that you see on the screen. This in turn will increase efficiencies around this process, and that enables operational awareness at all levels of any given agency. Those same information products that are enabling this operational awareness can then be retooled and reused to provide transparency for this public engagement component. So as Mike mentioned, a lot of the solutions that we have are very industry-specific configurations, and there's tons of them out there. They're all configured using the core Esri platform. They're designed to meet very specific business needs. These configurations, however, they tend to address high-level workflow patterns and are often really applicable to a variety of various industry needs. So we really want to encourage you to not like pigeonhole yourself to the ones that say environment and natural resources, kind of search around. And so in the spirit of that, I actually wanted to show you today the right-of-way permitting solution. This solution is configured around managing the permitting process for a variety of activities that might occur within a right-of-way, but the use case of managing the permit process is so much more universal. So let's take a look at how to deploy the solution and what you get when you deploy it. May take a delay. There we go. So here I am logged into my ArcGIS online organization. Now, Mike mentioned that you could kind of browse our solutions two ways. There's solutions.arcgis.com, or we can browse them through the ArcGIS online interface. So since I'm the solution engineer, I'm going to start with our online interface to really get you started. You'll see up here in the top right, I'm logged in as myself. And to the left of that is where we can access the suite of applications that are available to us in ArcGIS Online. So when I expand this, you'll see all of the different applications I have available to me. And I'm going to go ahead and click on the Solutions application. So here in the Solutions application is where you can browse the suite of solutions that are available to you to deploy. And there's just tons of them. Again, I really encourage you not to pigeonhole yourself. On the left-hand side of the screen is where we have our menu, and we can dive in specifically to our industry. So if I expand our state and local government tab, you'll see a number of things. We have agriculture, we have fish and wildlife, then we have natural resources. So what I'm going to do, even though it's a little counterintuitive, is actually click on public works. So that's one way that we can navigate to the right-of-way permitting solutions. Or up in the top left, we can actually just search for permitting. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. And you'll see that I actually get a couple different applications that are relevant to permitting here. And you'll see a green check mark here because I've already deployed the right-of-way permitting solution. When I click on View Details, what comes up is kind of this high-level information about the permitting solution. If I were to choose Learn More down here in the bottom left, it would take me to the solutions.arcgis.com, where I could learn all sorts of things about the solution, the software requirements for it, what you get, how to configure it, the whole gamut. I can also choose Get Now. That's the fun part, right? So you can just click on this, and what happens when you click on it is that it's going to deploy the solution for you. Now, what does that actually mean? So let me X out of this screen. So back in my ArcGIS online organization, I have this content screen. You should be familiar with this. It's where it keeps all the folders. And if I navigate down here, you'll see this right-of-way permitting folder. So what happens when I deploy a solution is that it builds the solution for me just kind of empty. It's waiting for you to infuse it with your own authoritative information. So I've got all my web mapping applications, I got the dashboard that comes with it, all the web maps that feed these different applications, the feature layers, the forms, and it's just waiting for you to kind of infuse it with your data, but everything is wired up on the back end. So it's a great way to kind of explore how things can be wired together. You can use these out of the box. And it comes with that whole soup to nuts thing from that, needing that permit application coming in, providing people with a form, all the way to kind of providing that public transparency, monitoring the status. So here's the try it live examples. You can explore these through solutions.arcgis.com. And here we have this permit manager. So if we take a quick look at our interface here, we have a list of all the permits that have come in. I have this top one selected. And on the left-hand side is where I can see information about this, including its status. And then, of course, a map of where all of these are and the specific one that I have selected in the map. Now, if I go to edit this record, then you'll see here that I can change the status. So I'm a staff member, and I've got it in staff review right now. So I'm going to go ahead and save that. And what happens when that is saved is that this at a glance status down here changes as well. So it's a great way to kind of manage this workflow. We also have a permitting dashboard so people can explore at a high level, what's this operational awareness? How many permits do we have? What kind of category are they in? What's the submission date? And then be able to interact with this dashboard as well, kind of filtering by submission date, approval date, the permit type, all the stuff. And these are all configurable tools. So even though this is right-of-way permitting, this can be used for any kind of permitting. Then this public comment, if I'm the public, let's put my public hat on, I can go ahead and I can click on one of these permits that's come in, and I have the opportunity to leave a comment about this and say, hey, I'm really in support of this. I can't wait for this to happen. This has been a long time coming. Whatever the public wants to say. So we've seen these permits kind of used in a variety of different ways, from running the gamut from like taking this really simple out of the box permitting solution to really having it inspire more complex workflows. So I'm going to pass it to Mike, and we're going to explore a couple customer examples of how folks were inspired.
All right, great. Nice job, Sunny. Actually, what I want to do is cover another aspect, which is the use of tools like Arcgis Hub and enterprise sites to help kind of bring all of these resources together and then facilitate the permitting process at the same time, which is really cool. So I'm going to start with Washington, D.C. and their urban forestry division. And while really the majority of D.C. government has embraced Hub for a variety of uses, but with urban forestry, they're actually responsible for the around 170,000 public trees across DC, in terms of, ensuring tree health and, addressing any related safety concerns. So Sunny, if you could go ahead and start the DC video. So let that get going. There we go. So they're using Hub to deliver a wide variety of educational resources about these trees, related services offered, and how to get involved. Citizens can follow all the related initiatives to stay up to date using available community logins that are provided with Hub as well. There's also access to various news, reports, and other resources, as well as tools to engage and provide feedback, such as this Survey 123 for Division Service Delivery feedback that we can see here on the screen I'm scrolling through. Related specifically to permitting though, tree permits are required for anyone needing to plant, prune, or remove a tree within the public right of way. And the permitting hub site, which is loading now, provides all the various information on what's needed to obtain a permit and how to go through the process. So a lot of information on when a permit is needed, including some interactive resources as well, which you see loading here, as well as the various types of permits that may be in play and conveying that information. There's some other complexities, such as for public sidewalk and special trees and heritage trees, and this is clearly communicated as well on what's required, along with information on developing tree preservation plans and if you need assistance with hazardous tree removal. So again, just getting the right information to residents and then facilitating any needed permitting processes depending upon the situation that's being faced. So really cool. So another example I want to show comes from South Carolina, and it's related to the environmental review side of things. As I'm sure we all know, reviews for potential impacts to species of special concern is often required as part of the permit process. The South Carolina Natural Heritage Program has embraced enterprise sites, which are mostly analogous to hub sites, but on your own infrastructure, to deliver the tools needed to conduct environmental reviews. So Sunny, if we can go ahead and fire this one up. So if we take a look here, this site is actually the home site for the program, and they're also delivering related content on what the program does, the species that are being tracked and their status, some public engagement resources to get involved with various citizen science initiatives, and then across the bottom, the access to the authoritative environmental review tools, which are for state and federal partners and select environmental professionals. Given this, they do control access to those logins, but once granted, I can log in like I'm doing here as an environmental professional, which gives me access to the tools and resources that the general public actually can't see, which includes information products to support the environmental review process, which we see loading now. So once this loads up, it gives me the ability to identify my proposed project and enter key information about it. So along with that, there's drawing tools that are provided to locate my project interactively, which I'm going to do now. So I'm going to go ahead and drop my proposed cell tower project on the map, which will also use a 2-mile buffer based on anticipated offsite impacts. And I'll go ahead and run the review, which is going to check for species location in the area, that may be impacted by the project. So this impact analysis does take a minute to run, but once it does, it will generate a standardized impact report that I can use in conjunction with my permit application. So once this is finished here, I will get a link here on the screen, there it is, as well as in an email. So I'll go ahead and drag that over here. And from either place, I can click on the link to view the report. And this report was actually generated using a layout in ArcGIS Pro. Which is associated with a custom print service, and it shows me the review I ran on the map, potential species impacts in the immediate area and the buffer area, any best management practices recommended during the actual project if it is indeed permitted. So you can see, hopefully the site has facilitated this entire piece of the permitting process and has ensured that we're using the latest and greatest content and tools to get the most accurate results possible. So hopefully you can see just a lot of opportunities around permitting processes, including engaging stakeholders and citizens like I just showed. So speaking of engaging stakeholders and citizens, Sunny, if you want to go to the next slide, we're going to transition now to outdoor recreation. And wow, this has just been a tremendous area of need and growth in terms of technology uses, especially over the last year as people flocked to the outdoors during the pandemic. And really outreach and engagement around recreational opportunities was a big need before the pandemic. And if we go to the next slide, we've long seen similar approaches and tools to what we just discussed being leveraged also in support of outdoor recreation strategies and addressing all the components of them. So in looking at outdoor recreation participation, a tremendous amount of content is needed, right? And we see GIS-based data collection tools for inventories of recreational opportunities and assets, regulations, and so on. Public-facing and crowdsourced tools for leveraging volunteers and getting feedback from existing or potential participants through things like angler and hunter surveys. GIS also provides great integration and visualization tools to better understand your customer base and market potential. Spatial analytic capabilities are also used to enhance all of this understanding and support the development of marketing strategies, and also to enhance communication strategies and in turn measure their impact. And then of course, GIS helps to enable outreach, and it provides a great means to act on all of this information and analysis to effectively promote recreational participation and opportunities in a way that truly resonates with existing and potential participants. So if we go to the next slide, I mentioned the impact of the pandemic this past year, and it's been well documented that there's been a major interest and surge in outdoor recreation activity. You know, honestly, for a while, that was the only way we could really get out of the house. The only way I could get out of this crazy basement, you know, was to go out and, you know, hit a trail or hit a local park. And this interest in the outdoors had both positive and negative impacts though, right? So positive in terms of illustrating the importance of recreational opportunities and, you know, increased participation and interest, which is great, but negative in that recreational areas were overrun, causing impacts to assets and natural resources, and even concerns in a time where we were supposed to be socially distancing, right? So what we continue to see during all of this is that geospatial technologies are playing huge roles in being able to quickly and easily stand up tools to track data, for example, on visitation and readiness of areas for that visitation. Certainly tracking participant feedback and comfort levels with using recreational resources has also been important. This is all then collectively used to track impact and potential impact on facilities and their readiness for this surge in participation. And of course, the impact on natural resources, and using resources like dashboards in a way to make all of this information actionable so that decisions can be made, you know, around adjusting recreational assets, maybe closing them completely for a little while, and communicating all of this with the public. The pandemic also resulted in a surge in digital and interactive map usage, as opposed to having paper and brochures available. There was also a need to promote a variety of recreational opportunities, not only for all this awareness, but also to spread recreational participants out and not have everyone visiting the same place at the same time. So these are all challenges, pandemic or not, that our agencies are focused on, and again, where GIS continues to play critical roles. And so with that, what I'm going to do is turn it back over to Sunny, who's going to discuss some of our related recreation solutions that are having impacts in these areas.
All right, thank you, Mike. So one of our solutions that's specific to environment and natural resources is this recreation outreach solution. So I like to think of this solution as targeting any entity that wants to understand an audience's behavior and activities. This can be like what kinds of outdoor recreation permits have been sold to whom, and of course where, with the licensed dashboard component of the solution, and then using this information and the insights from that dashboard to inform an outreach strategy that leverages Arcgis Hub for disseminating this information about outdoor recreation opportunities. So this is done via an Arcgis Hub template that comes with the solution. And the entire solution with the dashboard and the hub can be deployed from the Solutions app like we were showing earlier, or we can deploy just the hub template through the hub app. So that's what I'm going to show you today. So let's take a look. All right, so when we left off in the last demo, we were exploring the Arcgis Solutions application, and this time I'm going to be back here in my Arcgis online organization, going to navigate up to the left of my username, and I'm going to choose the Hub application. So this is going to open up the Hub application where I can kind of manage all of my Hub initiatives, the various content, the community, all sorts of stuff here. And I have a couple of different options. I know it's lagging for you all a little bit. So a couple of different options that show up. I can either choose to create a new initiative, or I can manage my existing initiatives. So today, for the purposes of the demonstration, I'm going to go ahead and show you deploying a new initiative. So I have the opportunity to give this initiative a new name and start building it from scratch, which is totally fine. But we want to encourage you to browse the templates and search for the outdoor recreation solution. So when you open up a template, an important note I want to make here is that I have a number of options for where I can find a template. I can either create templates myself, or if your organization has particular branding standards or you're collaborating closely with your marketing or communications team, you may have templates that you want to publish for your entire organization to use. So in this case, because we're going to start with the outdoor recreation template, I'm going to choose one that Esri has published and search for recreation. So when I search for recreation, it's going to, I know you all are lagging a little bit, there we go, show the Activate initiative here. So recreation outreach, this is part of Arcgis Solutions, it tells you a little bit about it. I can click on Activate initiative. Now, just as with the solutions, when you deploy a solution, it's going to lay down all of the items that you need to deploy this hub. So let's take a look at what that looks like. This is the try it live version of the hub, so you can kind of get a sneak peek at what it looks like. There we go. And you'll see here that there's some high level information about here's the number of open parks we have, here's the fishing spots we have, here's those big game hunting locations. All of this information, if you're not someone who's grown up necessarily in a culture or family that goes outdoors a lot, can be really overwhelming for you to find. So the entire point behind this is to make this really accessible, to bring folks into the fold and to allow them to find this information without feeling intimidated. So if we scroll down and continue on in the site, you'll see lots of different information products that are included. You can break this out by recreation, hunting, fishing, boating. We know that people have different kinds of outdoor recreation though, so all of this is configurable in this template. So let's take a look at what that configuration looks like. So once I've deployed this initiative and I've activated this initiative through Arcgis Hub, I can come in here and I can edit it to my heart's content. So you'll see as I'm kind of scrolling around the layout here that there's a bunch of different options to begin editing. On the left-hand side of the screen is where you have different things like your settings. So you can change maybe your domain settings, your CSS, which can be done in the theme. Again, if you have branding standards, which you probably do, you can edit your header and your footer, and then you're really going to spend most of your time in this layout component. So this layout component gives us a lot of drag and drop opportunities to kind of move things around and change the user interface to how we think might best suit our audience. So you'll notice here that all of my statistics are 0. And the reason is because it's really waiting for us to infuse this with our own information. So if I go to Open Parks and choose to edit this, what's going to happen is it's going to open up the editing panel on the left-hand side of the screen. And you'll notice that it says that the data I'm using is park recreation facilities _ public. Now, I did not create this feature layer. When I activated the initiative, it was created for me. So again, just like with the solutions, it's kind of laying down all the components necessary to get you going on a site like this, on a hub like this. So I can either choose to append my data to that. That can be done through Pro, or it can be done through ArcGIS Online, or I can choose a data set that maybe someone else is publishing out into the world, either into my organization, maybe it's another data set I have, but for demonstration purposes, let's find one. So I'm going to type in Tennessee State Parks and search for that. And what's going to come up is a list of available data sets. And I'm going to go ahead and click on Tennessee State Park boundaries, select this one, and I'm going to do park name. All of a sudden you see now that my statistic is saying that there's 103 parks. I believe that includes natural areas as well in Tennessee. So it's as easy as that to start incorporating your authoritative information into the hub site. So with that, Mike, I think I'm going to pass it back to you.
All right, cool. Thanks, Sunny. So what we wanted to do now is show an example of the recreation outreach solution in action. So Sunny, if you could go ahead and start the video. Pope County, Minnesota recently deployed and configured several critical citizen engagement hubs, all found from one destination here. One of these is for outdoor recreation participation. And once this goes ahead and loads up, looks like there's a little bit of a lag again. You can see it's literally the same template Sunny demoed, but leverages the county branding standards and is being driven by their GIS services. They incorporated the same park locator, but infused it with their content, and they offer resources related to wildlife, fishing, and boating, as well as where to buy the appropriate licenses and permits, and access to open data as well. So the same template as the solution. So if we go back up, citizens can launch the park locator, which contains that near me functionality to find park resources close to me. I'm going to go ahead and click on Starbuck Marina, which does not contain a Starbucks, but it's a great place to launch your boat. and I can learn more about it. Moving back to the main hub, we can see they took advantage of the subpages delivered with the solution. And if we click on fishing, we again see that same consistent layout and delivery of information. The county also included their public access locations in the water resource locator and is delivering a ton of content about these access areas, including directions and a variety of amenity information so you know before you go what to expect. So to me, this hub is very simple, but it's intuitive and engaging, which is so important, like Sunny was talking about, to encourage participation. And I love that there's this step-by-step kind of process or approach to, outdoor recreation participation. And that really helps with folks who are maybe a little intimidated or confused by regulations or what licenses are needed or having trouble finding places where to go recreate and so on. And this is exactly what these resources are geared at. All right, so Sunny, if you want to go to the next slide, I'm sure many of you are thinking, okay, these solutions look great, but they're only as good as the data behind them, right? Well, if you're thinking that, you're absolutely right. And the solutions are relying on data on assets, amenities, and facilities. And as I mentioned early on, this is a huge challenge for our agencies. And to that end, we wanted to make you aware of park infrastructure management solutions that we're working on, which are due to be released later this year to tackle these very challenges on curating authoritative inventories of park assets, managing routine and ad hoc work assignments, monitoring asset condition, and engaging the public. And as you can see, we're also focused on the various roles or personas within and external to agencies that are involved. So more to come, of course, and we're working with key customers to get these right, such as state park and conservation agencies and even some local park agencies. And we're really excited to deliver on these later this year. And these will infuse with those outdoor recreation solutions. So you use the content from these to infuse into those. So really, really excited about that. All right, so on to the next slide. So whether we're evaluating recreational opportunities being offered or environmental policies and related environmental impacts, it's critical for agencies to consider environmental justice factors, like I mentioned earlier. Certainly, social equity challenges have been brought more to the forefront over the last year, which really translates to environmental justice in our industry, right? And so for this final portion of the webinar, we're going to look at how ArcGIS tools are supporting environmental justice initiatives. So if we can go to the next slide. ArcGIS offers a wide array of resources and capabilities to support environmental justice considerations. So things like the ability to leverage content, things like demographics, socioeconomic factors, environmental impacts themselves, from readily available sources like the ArcGIS Living Atlas, federal and state sources, and so on. All of this is huge, being able to access that content in a usable way. These sources, in turn, are the inputs or criteria used by spatial analysis tools to identify vulnerable communities, whether by environmental burden or various community factors and susceptibility to environmental impacts as well. GIS also helps us to visualize all this in a meaningful and usable way through various maps and apps, and provides those interactive tools we've been discussing for the public to engage with the information and provide their own feedback as well. So if we go to the next slide, we see many states standing up these type of tools to communicate these challenges. So for example, Maryland has integrated web mapping applications to illustrate the results of their park equity analysis, which communicates access to or barriers to accessing public lands based on a variety of factors. Arizona has deployed public-facing dashboards to communicate both key demographics and environmental data by county. This allows anyone to juxtapose various community demographics with environmental factors like air quality non-attainment areas, impaired waters, hazardous waste sites, and so on. California has had public-facing environmental justice tools for several years, and they have most recently taken a platform approach to these deployments using Arcgis Hub, which ties together these awesome environmental justice screening tools with tools for stakeholders and citizens to engage with. The screening tool itself is used to identify communities disproportionately burdened by sources of pollution and with population characteristics that make them more sensitive to pollution. They also deploy a story map to show all the factors and indicators that went into the analysis, the results of which actually drive that screening tool. So just an amazing implementation, and really they're seen as a model for the rest of the nation in many ways. So there's a ton more to say here, but this is another area where we're just often asked, where do I get started? How do I go about this? And while that's exactly the premise behind what Sunny is going to show you now related to some readily available resources to help you deal with environmental justice challenges. So Sunny, go ahead.
Yeah, so as Mike mentioned, 2020 challenges spurred so much modernization and innovation. So in addition to these shifting social expectations, the federal government is also responding to these challenges and passed an executive order in 2020 to help address this. Colloquially, we refer to this as the 30 by 30 initiative, and we meaning the global we, not just Esri. So it addresses numerous facets of environmental issues, including conservation planning and environmental justice. So as agencies begin to tackle these challenges, Esri is able to provide you with a suite of tools, data, and applications through the Living Atlas to get you started. So let's take a look at that. All right, so as this is kind of getting up ready on the screen, I'm going to set up a fictional scenario. So in this fictional scenario, I work for TDEC, which is the Tennessee Department of Environment and Conservation. I've been asked to assess a permit application for a new industry campus that has a high potential for adding additional pollutants to the regional air quality. Before we issue this permit, we have been asked to assess the industry's chosen location for equitable impacts to the surrounding community and share these results for a meeting with the stakeholders that's happening in 30 minutes. Because this never happens to us as GIS analysts, right? So I was planning on meeting my mother for lunch, and so I think I'm being forced to choose between being scolded by my mom for lack of time management or being fired for my lack of responsibility. So luckily with Esri's Maps for Public Policy, I don't have to make that decision. So let's take a look at how we can leverage ArcGIS Living Atlas. So here I'm at the homepage for the ArcGIS Living Atlas, and up here I'm going to choose the Apps tab. So when the Apps tab opens up, we'll actually see that there's a number of different information products that Esri provides, and a lot of these are going to be relevant to various environmental applications. So whether that's 30 by 30 or whether this is just your day-to-day needs. So here it's opening up with a highlighted app. And as we come down here, we'll see air quality aware, living indicators of the planet, hurricane aware, USA wildfires. So this is taking authoritative information published by either Esri or by our partners like NASA, NOAA, whoever, and bringing it together with some kind of pre-baked analyses. I'll probably use that term more times than you're willing to hear it. So what I want to focus on today is Esri's Map for Public Policy. So I'm going to go ahead and open up this application. So remember in our scenario that I have been asked to kind of do an assessment and send it along real quick for a meeting happening, shortly. So I'm going to go to this Explore tab here in our Maps for Public Policy. And I know that my area of interest being in Tennessee, this campus is going to be located in Nashville, Tennessee. That's our region of interest. So here we are in Nashville, Tennessee. And the first thing I'm going to start searching for is something related to air quality. So I'm just going to type in air quality in my search bar over here on the left. So what happens when I type in air quality is that there's a number of kind of statements or questions that open up. And one of them is, which areas with poor air quality also have higher populations of people of color? So yes, this is one of the components that we're concerned about in our meeting. I'm going to go ahead and click on that. And I want to view this. I want to see if it looks relevant to the conversation that's going to be coming up. So it populates, and I look at this data set and I say, wow, yes, there's a really strong geographic influence here. I'm going to go ahead and add this to my collection. I think this is relevant for the meeting that's coming up. It's great. Esri's already done this analysis for me. All I have to do is share this information out. Now, let's say that one of the stakeholders in this meeting is also the health department. And one of their questions is they want to know how many people in this area are actually insured, who can actually handle this extra burden on their quality of life. So I'm going to go ahead and type in insurance. And same thing, I'm going to have a couple of options that pop open for me to choose from. And one of these is, where are minority populations with no health insurance? So I'm going to go ahead and click on that, and it's going to add it to my gallery. I can check that out and view it, make sure that this is relevant for my analysis. And when it opens up and populates, I'm going to see that there's actually a lot of correspondence between the geographic pattern that we saw earlier and this geographic pattern. So yes, this is definitely relevant to the conversation. I'm going to go ahead and add that to my collection. So up here in the top right, once I've added it to my collection, you're going to see that it says map 2 of 2. So now I have 2 different maps that are relevant to this conversation that they can take and use in their meeting coming up. So I can copy this link, I can share it with my commissioner. He's happy and my mom is happy, and I have reversed years of disappointment with her by making it to lunch on time, and I don't get fired because I've given a relevant analysis out in time for the meeting. So Maps for Public Policy is a really powerful tool for sharing information, stories, and providing kind of pre-baked analyses that you can get out of Esri's Living Atlas that are relevant to environmental justice, conservation planning with our green infrastructure tools that we have in in Living Atlas. So I really encourage you to explore both the Maps for Public Policy, the other applications that Esri provides, such as our green infrastructure tools, all sorts of stuff. So don't be afraid of Living Atlas. All right, Mike, I'm going to hand it back to you.
All right, awesome job, Sunny, on all that. So that, if you want to go ahead and switch to the next slide, that rounds out the main content for the webinar today. We did want to provide you with some additional resources and upcoming event information. First of all, we've had a lot of questions in the chat here about the recording and the slides, and yes, we will be providing all of that. So in case any of you have to jet right now, we will be providing that and follow up. But first, we do also want to mention that we have an Esri Environment Natural Resources website, which we do keep fresh with information on trends and strategies and solutions and so on. Also want to point out there's a community page there, which contains a wealth of customer success stories and case studies that I definitely encourage you to check out. Sunny and I also maintain a set of environment natural resources trend story maps, which focus on the main trends we're seeing and, again, customer examples related to them. Also, there's this little event known as the Ezra User Conference coming up in July, and it will be virtual again, as I think we all know by now. We've put together an industry-specific flyer with related workshops, user presentations, special interest group meetings, and so on. And I did want to point out that there's a session around 30 by 30 on the 14th, which you should check out, not only because Sunny is one of the presenters, but also we brought together several teams, all of which have a role in 30 by 30, to take a holistic look at opportunities to enable the needed conservation planning for those initiatives. Lastly, I wanted to mention we are having our 3rd annual Environment Natural Resources Special Interest Group meeting, which you should definitely check out. Those meetings are all about the community, and that's where you hear from your colleagues, from your peers around these main trends and their implementation, success stories, lessons learned, all that kind of stuff. And we make it fun too, with a lot of interaction even in this virtual setting. I also want to mention, and Sunny mentioned too, real quick, that we do engage with a lot of other industry events and fish and wildlife and parks, forestry, environmental protection, conferences and events, and you'll find information about those as well as previous industry webinars that we've held on the website that I mentioned above. Also, one last reminder that you will get a survey following the webinar that we hope you will take seriously and fill out, and it really helps us in terms of future webinar topics and formats and so on. So Sunny, if you can go to the final slide. The final thing I wanted to mention is that our next webinar in this series is coming up on August 18th, where we'll be discussing key takeaways from that users conference, particularly for state and local government. This is also free, and you can go back to the same site where you registered for today's webinar to register for that one. And I think this is a great one to attend, as the user conference agenda is so large, and this will really help boil things down for you in terms of technology, capabilities, and trends, and how to jumpstart implementation in your own organization. So definitely check it out. So with that, Sunny, if you want to call up the questions slide, I want to thank everybody for joining us today and sticking with us here. We truly hope this was helpful for you, and we do have a few minutes for questions that we can get to. Hopefully you can stick around for that. And again, this is being recorded, so if you have to leave for any reason, you will get the recording with this as well. Okay, so Sunny.
Yeah, we've got quite a few questions actually, which is great. So the first question, I think, Mike, you can touch on this real quick, but someone's asking if anyone is applying. I think they were probably referring maybe to the solutions or maybe the platform in general to wildfire, smoke, and air quality. Resounding yes on that one.
A resounding yes, yes.
In between our customer Yeah, go
Yep.
ahead.
There's some great examples of that as well. Also, we do have you were mentioning smoke and fire and that kind of thing. We do have a wildland fire website as well, an Esri-based website there, and there's some good examples there. But yes, these are common uses, and there's some great resources right in the Living Atlas too, to bring to bear some of that capability, including some dashboard implementations. So definitely a good question there, and definitely possible.
Okay. Ooh, I get to take this one. It's a little technical, so I'll answer it super quick. So someone is asking, what's the recommended workflow for collecting data at the same location on a monthly or seasonal basis? Yeah, we see this a lot, actually. This is obviously not new. So whether it's maybe a scientific research plot that you're going back to, or maybe in the case of dam safety, a dam that you keep going back to over and over again, or a location where a permit has been applied, you can use a variety of different ways, but oftentimes it's going to be a relationship. So here's the asset itself that we're interested in going back to, and then maybe there's another layer or another table that's related where you're actually entering in the more temporal information about that. So I hope
Awesome.
that helps, Jim. Let's
So,
see.
Sunny,
Go
I've
ahead,
got
Mike.
one for you that I think you should answer. Have you seen any organizations use these dashboards to demonstrate trail
Ooh.
development work, showing completed section and gaps in trails?
Oh my
Go
gosh,
right
yes.
ahead.
Yeah. We've definitely seen the platform used to support those kinds of workflows. So whether it's looking at like trail condition assessments and even related kind of to Jim's question, going back to the same trail over and over again, doing an assessment there, or looking at, all right, how can we do like a least cost analysis to understand where we might want to actually put a trail in, or what land acquisition we might want to target for an easement or outright purchase. So yeah, there's a variety of different ways that the platform's been used. Tennessee, Missouri, both of those come to mind. Ohio, all sorts of stuff. It runs the gamut. Great question,
Awesome.
Courtney. Thank you.
Yep, I knew you would like that one. So,
Yep.
all right. We did have some questions on training focused on using and editing hubs. Another resounding yes. Definitely encourage you to check out Esri's training sites where you can actually also access learning plans, focus on particular applications of the technology, particular pieces of the platform, including things like Hub. And the learning plans really lay out, kind of basic to advanced kind of courses, many of which are free for you to be able to take. And definitely there's some great training resources there for using and editing hubs.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to steal this one, Mike.
Go ahead.
All right, it's a question that comes up a lot. So when we talk about Living Atlas, so the Living Atlas does publish data, or aggregates. It's a kind of a curated, authoritative data set. So we have a lot of partners that contribute to it, but we also, as we showed with the Maps for Public Policy, have applications. We have models that are published on there that you can use. So things like, pulling out building data, all sorts of stuff. There's a zillion different models. I won't even go into it all. But yeah, what's the value of the data behind it? So can we see the metadata behind the Maps for Public Policy? The answer is yes. So all of the data sets that go into those analyses that Esri's providing in these apps, you can see the actual data sets that are going into this. So in the case of the air pollution one, we have a couple of different air quality data sets in there. Some are provided by NOAA, one's provided by NASA. And when you click on the details of those data sets, you can see all of the metadata behind that and understand how it can be used, how it can't be used, what the scientific limitations of this data set is. So resounding yes there as well.
Sunny, I want to go to a technical one for you, and you sort of alluded to it before, but we just had a question come in. Does ArcGIS Online support relationship classes? And I think some of that goes back to what you were talking about before. So do you want to elaborate a little bit more on that?
Yes, it does. So there's a couple different workflows for kind of standing this up, but the way that I tend to do it is I go ahead and I build out kind of my relationships in a database when I'm working inside Pro, and I go ahead and publish that to ArcGIS Online, and ArcGIS Online will recognize that that relationship exists. So you can leverage that then in field maps for your field workers. You can leverage it inside the other desktop applications and really take advantage of the power of related information, related tables.
Absolutely.
All right.
We get that one a lot.
Ooh, I like
Or
this
that
one.
question a lot.
Kristen, this is a quick one. Can anyone at my organization attend the user conference? Yes. So the
Please.
virtual user
Yes.
conferences, all you need is your account number. So they can register for a free ArcGIS Online username and use that username to register and just say that this is our account number. So very easy.
Excellent. All right. Oh, here's another one that just came in on the does ArcGIS Online support database views?
Oh, you may have me stumped. What do you mean by database views? Like views of a feature layer?
So database views, probably views from the database that then could be persisted to ArcGIS Online.
Gotcha. Okay, yeah. So yes, so oftentimes what we see is that our enterprise users who have their on-premise infrastructure, they need something that's internal. Maybe there's more robust details with a particular data set that's being published internal to the organization. But then there's always that public-facing component. And these two things, you don't want to have to keep up with a bunch of different copies of the same data. So ArcGIS Online and ArcGIS Enterprise are designed to make that really easy for you. Those things can just talk to each other and you don't have to always babysit it. So yes.
Excellent. And the person who asked that clarified, and you're right on point. So
okay, good.
Yep,
all right.
Good deal.
Always a guessing game.
Yeah, I never know. Cool.
Oh yeah. What else? Sorry, I'm getting like all excited here. We have
I know, this is fun.
Okay. We do have one here that's related to forestry, Mike. And is there a use case for online monitoring using remote sensing and any implementation on burnt area analysis for forestry? Oh my gosh. Land change, classification, all that kind of analysis. Again, another big resounding yes. We see people use this all the time, both in forestry, but also when they're doing conservation monitoring. So if there's a conservation easement, and especially in 2020, if you don't want to be talking with landowners directly, or maybe they're not comfortable, you can actually remotely sense the easement or remotely sense a forestry stand and see what's been that change over time using a plethora of our tools in the ArcGIS platform. So yes.
Great answer, and it just warms my heart because I'm the one that came from the forestry background, not you, and that was awesome.
I know.
So, that was perfect. Yeah.
I'm a lifelong learner, Mike.
Exactly. All right. Let's take a stab at this one. So, do these applications and strategies, can they be used to examine environmental impacts of increased people and animal interactions?
Ooh, yes.
Want to take a stab at that one?
Yeah, absolutely. So we've seen a few different use cases around this, and a really great example. Oh, her name escapes me right now. I follow her on Instagram. She was one of our hosts for the UC last year, but she does bear studies. So she's trapping bears, putting trackers on their ears, and then this information is being used then. So she has her application where she's monitoring kind of the bear movement and looking at these corridors of migration. And then she's able to juxtapose that against where the community is using the ArcGIS platform and tools that are provided to them to say, hey, I've had an interaction with a bear here. She's able to look at these data sets and start to make some policy determinations or help to kind of inform how do we manage this. So we've seen it used there. We've seen it used with birds and planes and those kinds of interactions. We've seen it used with, there was a great use case where volunteers were actually taking quick capture and they were cycling down a highway and logging roadkill, which at that point you were able to see kind of a linear pattern of the quantifying and the density of roadkill. So they were able to assess then with the DOT, all right, this may be an area where we want to put in a wildlife corridor and things like that to reduce this. So yeah, we see that all the time. I get excited about this stuff, sorry. What else, Mike? What else we got?
All right. Well, we're just about at 2:00 Eastern, so I think we do have to wrap. So, but there are a few questions here that we will definitely follow up on. One common question was around, the links and resources that we showed. Yeah, you will get those because we're going to provide the slides in particular, and everything is linked within those. So you'll have access to all of those resources that we showed and that we alluded to and things like that. So All right. Well, again, thank you so much for your participation today. We had a really good attendance, which was really cool to see. And we really hope this was beneficial for you. Please reach out. We, provided our contact information here as well. A few of you mentioned you would in the chat, and we can't wait for that. And again, attend that webinar next month or in August on follow up from the UC. And again, you will get a post-webinar survey. So please go ahead and fill that out, and let us know your ideas for future topics and whatnot.
Yeah, hopefully you like this.
Yeah, hope so. But again, thank you so much, and I hope you all have a wonderful rest of your day.